Hi everyone, it's Carol Belling, and tonight I'm going to talk with you about Chapter 9, which is on writing. I work at the College of Western Idaho here in Nampa, and whenever I am teaching a course, I typically teach education courses, I give them a pre-writing assessment so I can see what skills they're bringing into, what writing skills specifically they're bringing into the classroom. And then multiple small writing assignments throughout the semester, culminating in a final paper. In our chapter, the book discusses a lot of factors that affect a student's ability to write. And it's kind of funny, having been a high school teacher, what they point out makes sense, and it's things you've uncovered over years and years of teaching. But when they really drill down on a specific area, it helps you as an instructor really understand why that is a challenge for a student and how it affects their ability to write. Alright, so looking more closely, environmental is, the book talks a lot about using technology and keyboarding skills and how that affects a student's comfort level in writing. And I like to give an example of some of my students that are over the age of 65 who struggle with just keyboarding and tabbing and using the mouse, that sort of thing, and how that affects their writing ability. It slows them down in the writing process. Oftentimes they'll get frustrated, but they'll also lose phrasing as they're trying to build their writing, or their writing won't be as smooth or as detailed because they were going to say more, but then they forgot because they were worrying about trying to double click and get something out of the computer. Next is motivation. I thought it was very interesting. The book highlights two main areas in motivation. It talks about several areas of motivation, but specifically a student's level of self-efficacy and their belief that they have good enough writing skills to be successful. Those two factors are key in creating motivation and getting a student to even begin to attempt an assignment. The knowledge in long-term memory was a really fascinating section, and it talked about these 5 different areas and how they affect a student's ability to write. And these areas have to be in balance. If you're really good at a topic, you really know your subject, but you don't understand your audience, then your paper and your writing suffers. So those 5 areas are important to have a strong balance and strengths in each of the 5 areas. And then under cognitive processes, there's 3 main areas. Taking your visualization, or however you come up with ideas in your head, if you're highly visual or more musical or what have you, however you take that information from your head and start putting it into words is the text interpretation step. Reflection, thinking about what you're writing and bringing it together on the paper, and then transforming is the actual foundation of beginning to write. And that's where good reading skills really comes into play in that 3rd step, the transforming. And then working memory also had 3 areas: the formulation, the execution, the physical act of keyboarding, and monitoring. So I found that part of the chapter very interesting and quite detailed. We also talk a little bit about brain research in the chapter, and the number one takeaway in this part of the chapter would be the fact that any time one area of the brain has had any sort of traumatic brain injury or suffered any sort of damage, it affects the ability to write, because writing is something where you're formulating ideas and transferring it into words, but at the same time you're also using motor skills of physically writing, and you're using all those cognitive skills and planning and revising. You're using more than just one area of your brain. It's really a concert of skills working together. So I thought this quote out of the book was summed it up perfectly. Writing involves multiple areas of the brain that work in concert to produce skilled performance. And one area is compromised, then writing will either be very difficult and frustrating for a student, or just simply won't be as well done. All right, writing development. If you are lucky enough to have children, you've seen this in real life, but it begins with non-figural graphics, scribbling, and works its way into becoming kind of like letters, and then gets more like letters. Then you have the increase in memory and knowledge, and then motor skills start to improve. So you can see how this is sort of a snowball effect. But if you can instill some of those interests in the beginning when they're doing the scribbling, and they've got an interest and motivation there, if you can really foster that and promote that as they improve their memory, knowledge, motor skills, knowledge of topics, ability to plan, once all of those other skills start coming, then you really have a strong writer in the making. Our book talked about the differences between skilled and less skilled writers, and they came up with 8 key areas, which I thought were interesting. Number 1, higher GPAs, test scores, long-term memory, and skilled at manipulating verbal information. This makes complete sense that these types of students would have stronger writing. I thought it was interesting, high test scores, because I didn't correlate that at first, but then I thought, yep, when you can evaluate a test question, start getting rid of the answers that don't apply, and narrow it down and really focus on bringing the right answer forward. Of course, those students would apply those same set of skills when they write. For elementary students, mechanics of writing increases fluency and quality. Good readers tend to be better writers. No surprise there, right? A good writer writes more holistically, and the novice writer stays more closely to the assignment specifics, right? How many times have you had a student who is just hanging on that 250 word minimum, or sticking so closely to the 5-paragraph essay? I've seen that so many times in the class, and I've never really reflected on the fact that that's because their writing skill set is lower, that they find comfort in those boundaries. So I thought that was fascinating. Language competency. Certainly you see this when you're working with second language learners. Strong writers engage in more strategic planning. I've always thought, how can I teach better strategic planning to my students? Because it is those students who can sort of think ahead and start to plan things always tend to be your stronger students. More likely to revise, which I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in genders a little bit later. And then able to modify, evaluate, and focus more closely on their writing goals, which aligns very strongly with number 6. You have those students who come in and they just seem to have it together. They kind of know where they're going in their writing, and then they're able to modify and change when new information comes to them, or they uncover new information. Those are your strongest writers. In gender differences, our book looked at these 6 areas listed, and they found a couple of key things that I pulled out from the chapter. Boys have higher verbal fluency, which I thought was interesting. I have 4 boys. They range in age from 4 to 6, and they talk all the time. So I wasn't surprised about that first bullet. And the girls have a higher orthographic fluency. Girls have a stronger quality of writing, and they tend to revise more. I wasn't surprised at all to see that girls tend to revise more. I work in a 2nd grade classroom 2 mornings a week, and I see this in action every day. Those boys just want to race through, they want to get done, they want to go to recess, they have a lot of energy. And it's not to say that we don't have girls that also have a lot of energy, have a tough time sitting still and that sort of thing. But you do tend to see the girls, and we've got a couple of boys who show this strength and ability to revise and slow down. They tend to be your stronger writers. Word choice and topic is different among genders, which again is no surprise, especially if you have children. And ethnicity factors in also to word choice and topic. As far as the best instructional approach, the book advocates using inquiry approach, where students are given data and then asked to write something. So this is a stronger approach because students have to do so much of the work. Instead of giving them very detailed instructions that, like bullet points of exactly what to do, this way of giving them data and asking them, giving them a prompt to write about, enables them to do all that planning and organizing and revising and looking for additional information and reorganizing or narrowing it down to the correct focus. So I can understand why the inquiry approach would work. I have found in teaching adult learners, though, when you don't give them a lot of parameters, they get nervous. They find comfort in lots of rules about an assignment. And even I have emailed our Dr. Taylor and said, what's your page number on this assignment? And when she wrote me back and said, just write what you need, I thought, oh geez, I don't know if you want to open that door, because I tend to write a lot. And but she didn't fail me on the paper, so I guess it was okay. But it's kind of funny that I, myself included, I like to know a lot of details, but if you open that door and you say, do what you need to do, then it really opens your mind to like, oh, where do I want to go with this? What do I want to do with this? So I love that. I love this aspect of the inquiry approach to instruction. We also found 3 key areas to writing instruction. Directly teach writing strategy, skills, and knowledge, which I see this in the second grade classroom all the time. And it's just such a strong foundational instructional strategy that's needed. Structure the writing environment to maximize students' success in learning and facilitate writing development through peer interactions. So those are the 3 keys to writing instruction. All right, so taking all of that into consideration, I looked at this course I'm teaching this semester, and it is it's called Ecology of the Child, and it's really about how students are socialized in a K-12 classroom. And the course culminates in a 7-page paper where a student has taken 10 hours of observation and has read 12 chapters in this book about socialization of children in K-12 environments, and synthesizes their own sort of perspective on how they will purposefully engage and mold children in their future classrooms. So that's the ultimate essay. That's where we're going towards the end. So I'm getting them at the beginning of the semester with sometimes very strong writing abilities. Generally, it's sort of, I would say, out of a scale of 1 to 10, it's around a 6 or 7, and then I will have a few students who have a very low writing ability. They are required to take English 101 before they take this class, so they do have to at least be at grade level, for lack of a better term, before beginning this course. So here's how I break down that big assignment. Develop content knowledge, which is the weekly instruction over each chapter. And they also are doing reflections on their 10 hours of observations in a K-12 classroom. They practice write, so they have 5 journals over the course of the semester which break down the prompts for their final essay. So there's 5 prompts in the final essay that they have to talk about over the 7 pages, but each journal is one of those prompts. So it's kind of similar to how Dr. Taylor has structured our class. And modeling. So for modeling, this is a fully online class, and I've used a lot of video lectures to review exemplary journals and give them an idea of what they should be writing about in their journals, how to organize it, what the content level and detail should be. I give them an opportunity to do a peer review once all the journals are done, and I've given them their feedback. The feedback is based on their content, not on the journal formatting and that sort of thing. There's some minimums, Times New Roman 12 point, use paragraphs, basic stuff like that, but their final paper is the one they actually put in APA. So they take those 5 journals, they put it into APA, finalize it, give an introduction and a conclusion. And they put it in a discussion board to review each other's work. And then step 5 here is the final paper that they do based on their peer review. And then 6 is a new step that I just added this semester, prompted by this course, where each student completes a very short 5-question survey about their writing improvement during the course of the class based on this structured assignment. So what I found was there's a couple things that are really working and definitely one that needs a lot of work. The development of content knowledge seems to be working well. They are coming into the class with little to no knowledge about what socialization is and leaving with a much stronger framework. The class is based on Bronfenbrenner's I forget how to say that word, Bronfenbrenner's model, so that's a whole new level of theory study for these students. The chunking of the main essay is well received by students. They like doing the 5 journals and then putting it together at the end. Each time they do a journal, they've only read so many chapters in the textbook, but when they get to putting the final paper together, they've read all 12 chapters, so they're able to revise and edit and enhance those 5 journals when they're compiling them. So that worked well. And the video lecture, giving them points about good and bad writing practices in their journal, also seems to improve the quality of the journals that I'm getting and the quality of the overall paper that I receive at the end. Number 3 there, or the third bullet down, details the greatest weakness in this structure, and that's the peer review. And so we, meaning I, need to better structure that aspect of the course. And I'm not sure if I need to develop stronger grading guidelines, a stronger rubric, my expectations of what peer review should be, or if doing another video lecture would be appropriate where I highlight appropriate peer responses and feedback. I was very pleased with the individual performance of the papers that were submitted. They were well done. I also did a video on APA format where I go through how to do the header and set it up so the first page header is different than the rest, and some of those technical things. And I think that's been helpful in helping students learn APA formatting, although I am not perfect at APA formatting, and neither are my students. We could all use a little bit of work, I suppose. Okay, and so I have a couple of ideas for that for my students, pairing them with the Writing Center at CWI, and maybe more tutorials. And then lastly, the survey was interesting. The part I thought was most interesting was that students were feeling more confident going into that large end of the semester writing assignment because they had chunked it out into these journals. I think that enhanced confidence and feeling like they were capable before they even started the assignment really affects their ability to write more clearly. And then the disappointment was the peer review interactions, which I wasn't surprised to see. But again, I have to brainstorm and come up with something a little better there. My final thoughts on this experience would be that it's really important to structure your instructional strategies based on your audience. So at College of Western Idaho, we have a high population of students in poverty and living below the poverty line. They have a lot of external factors that are competing for attention in their lives. And they have oftentimes significant financial burden. And so given all of those parameters, you really have to support students using all the resources available. So you teach online, you learn to really teach well online because that's what they're getting, that's it. And use every Web 2.0 tool that you can that will touch lots of different kinds of learning styles. So I just think about that a lot when I'm creating content and curriculum for my courses at CWI based on the audience that I serve primarily. I hope the video was informative and interesting to hear. And if you haven't had a chance to look over Chapter 9 and you teach anything, you should definitely incorporate more writing practice. So thank you very much for listening.